Xukai and Tansongyun, the wedding invitation that changed everything. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating drama stories, celebrity updates, and unforgettable moments. Some invitations arrive with joy. Some arrive with surprises. And then there are invitations that seem ordinary at first, but quietly carry a secret powerful enough to change everything. This is one of those stories. Imagine waking up one morning and finding an elegant white envelope waiting for you. No return address. No explanation. Just your name written carefully across the front. Would you open it? Xukai did. And what he discovered inside would send him on a journey he never expected. It began on an unusually peaceful morning. After spending weeks away for work, Xukai had finally returned home. The city outside was slowly coming alive beneath a soft golden sky. Inside his living room, however, there was still evidence of the busy weeks he had missed. Unopened mail covered the table. Bills, magazines, business correspondence. Nothing unusual. Then one envelope caught his attention. It was different from the others. The paper was thick and elegant, almost like something from another era. There was no company logo, no return address, and no indication of who had sent it. Only his name. Xukai. Curious, he picked it up and opened it. Inside was a beautifully designed wedding invitation. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later at an old lakeside estate, a place famous for its gardens, ancient trees, and breathtaking views of the water. At first, Xukai smiled. A wedding invitation was hardly unusual. But then he noticed something else. Tucked behind the invitation was a small handwritten note. Only 11 words. Please come. There is something I have wanted to tell you for years. There was no signature. No explanation. Just that sentence. And suddenly, the wedding invitation didn't feel ordinary anymore. Who had written it? What could they possibly have wanted to tell him for years? And perhaps the biggest question of all. Why reveal such a secret at a wedding? For the rest of the day, Xukai couldn't stop thinking about those words. He tried to concentrate on work. He tried to convince himself that it was probably nothing. But the unanswered questions kept returning. 3 days later, he arrived at the estate. The scene looked almost magical. Music floated through the gardens. Flowers lined the pathways. Guests wandered between beautifully decorated tables, laughing and greeting old friends. Beyond the gardens, the lake reflected the afternoon sunlight like a sheet of glass. Everything looked perfect. Yet Xukai couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for him. As he walked toward the ceremony, an elderly woman suddenly approached. She looked at him with a warm smile. You've finally come. Xukai barely had time to respond. The woman placed a small wooden box into his hands. Then she said quietly. She said you would understand. And before he could ask who she was, the woman walked away. Xukai stared at the box. He opened it. Inside was a single object. An old silver key. Nothing more. No message. No explanation. Just a key. For the next hour, one question occupied his mind. What did it unlock? Then the ceremony began. Everyone turned toward the aisle. And there she was. Tansongyun. She walked gracefully toward the ceremony as the music played softly around the garden. The guests watched with smiles, cameras captured the beautiful moment, and the atmosphere was filled with warmth. The vows were heartfelt. The applause echoed across the lake. For everyone else, it was a celebration. But Xukai's thoughts remained fixed on the mysterious silver key hidden in his pocket. Something about the day felt carefully planned. Too carefully planned. And then, as evening arrived and the reception began, the elderly woman appeared again. She approached Xukai quietly. This time, she didn't give him another object. She whispered just one sentence. The greenhouse behind the garden. Go now. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Xukai looked toward the garden. At the far end of the property stood an old greenhouse, almost hidden behind climbing roses and thick ivy. Why would anyone send him there? And why now? He waited until the celebration became busy enough that no one would notice him leaving. Then he quietly walked away. The greenhouse looked forgotten by time. Its wooden door was weathered, and vines covered much of the frame. Xukai reached into his pocket. He pulled out the silver key. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he inserted it into the lock. Click. The key turned perfectly. The door opened with a soft creak. And what he saw inside left him speechless. Hundreds of tiny lights illuminated the greenhouse. Photographs hung from ribbons stretched across the ceiling. Dozens of them. Some showed family members. Others showed friends. There were old celebrations, childhood memories, vacations, reunions, and ordinary moments that somehow looked extraordinary when viewed years later. Xukai slowly walked through the room. Every photograph seemed to tell a story. But then he noticed something in the center of the greenhouse. Another envelope. And once again, his name was written across the front. He opened it carefully. This time, there was no mystery about the message. The letter revealed the reason behind everything. Tansongyun and Xukai had spent years helping bring together people who had once been important to one another but had gradually lost touch. They believed a wedding wasn't only about two people beginning a new chapter. It could also be about helping others rediscover chapters they had mistakenly believed were already finished. The mysterious invitation. The handwritten note. The silver key. The greenhouse. None of it had been accidental. It was all part of a plan. A plan designed to remind Xukai of the people who had once mattered most in his life. He lowered the letter slowly. Then he heard something. Voices. Familiar voices. Xukai turned around. One by one, several people stepped into the greenhouse. They were old friends. People he hadn't seen in years. Some had been part of his childhood. Others had once shared unforgettable moments with him before life pulled them in different directions. For nearly a decade, some of them had barely spoken. Yet now they were standing there together. Smiling. Waiting. For a moment, Xukai didn't know what to say. Then someone laughed. Another friend stepped forward and hugged him. And suddenly, the years between them seemed to disappear. Stories began pouring out. Old jokes returned. Childhood memories resurfaced. The silence of years was replaced by laughter. It was as if time had never passed. Hours later, Tansongyun and Xukai entered the greenhouse together. When they saw everyone gathered there, they smiled. Tansongyun looked around at the room filled with familiar faces. Then she spoke softly. Today was never only about our wedding. It was also about reminding people that the greatest treasures in life are the relationships we sometimes forget to protect. Xukai looked around. The photographs. The old friends. The laughter. The people he had almost lost touch with. Suddenly, he understood. The mysterious invitation had never really been about the wedding. It had been about the journey. It had brought him somewhere he didn't expect to go, and returned something he didn't realize he had lost. People. The people who had shared his past. The people who remembered the person he had been before fame, success, responsibilities, and time changed everything. And perhaps that was the secret hidden inside the invitation all along. Not a scandal. Not a shocking revelation. Not some dramatic confession. Something much more meaningful. A reminder that life can become so busy that we forget to protect the relationships that once meant everything to us. Later that night, everyone gathered beside the lake. The sky had grown dark, and hundreds of lanterns floated gently across the water. Their reflections shimmered beneath the stars. Family and friends stood together along the shore. Tansongyun and Xukai held hands. Nobody seemed eager to leave. Nobody wanted the night to end. For once, there were no schedules to follow. No deadlines. No distance. No years separating old friends. There was simply this moment. Together. And perhaps that was the real meaning of the wedding invitation. Life moves quickly. People grow older. Dreams change. Careers take us to different places. Friends become strangers. Years disappear before we even realize they are gone. But some connections never truly disappear. Sometimes, all they need is a reason to return. And sometimes, the greatest gifts don't arrive wrapped in expensive paper. They arrive as an unexpected invitation. A mysterious message. A forgotten key. Or a person who simply says, "Come. We have something to show you." Because in the end, the most valuable part of an invitation isn't the place it takes you. It's the people you meet along the way. And perhaps that is why this particular wedding invitation changed everything. It didn't just open a door. It opened memories. It reopened old friendships. And most importantly, it reminded everyone present that the relationships we cherish today are the memories we will carry tomorrow. So, if there is someone in your life you've been meaning to call, someone you haven't spoken to in years, maybe today is the right day. Send the message. Make the call. Accept the invitation. Because sometimes, one small decision can lead to a moment you'll remember for the rest of your life. And sometimes, the most unexpected invitation can become the beginning of something beautiful. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe *** for more emotional stories, unforgettable drama moments, and celebrity updates. Thank you for watching. And remember, the best memories are often the ones we never planned to make. See you in the next video.